live? Good? Ms. Elric, we're good? Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Tuesday, June 7th. It's currently 7 o'clock. I would like to start off by acknowledging that the Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations, with communities that are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver. Those would be the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we would like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many tutorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. First of all, we just have a quick addition to add to the agenda, which will be item 11C, Public Works Staffing, Verbal Staff Report. So with that amendment, could I get someone to approve the amended agenda? So moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Public input. Public is permitted to provide comments to council on any item shown on this meeting agenda. A 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. I'm just going to see. Trevor, do you have anything to say? I just opened up public input. Do you have anything to say in regards to anything that's on the agenda? Okay, okay, good, okay. We have no delegations. We'll go to minutes, adoption of the minutes. The minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 17th, 2022. The recommendation would read
that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 17th, 2022 be adopted as circulated.
Someone to move those? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No. Okay. We'll go on. We don't have a consent agenda. We're now going to move on to legislative reports. 9A. Zoning bylaw updates. A report dated May 31st, 2022 from Mr. Chris Boyd, our Manager of Development Services, is attached. Mr. Boyd.
That came around quick, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Did I miss something, or?
No.
No? Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we're here today in response to a previous council meeting held on July 6, 2021. When I wrote that, I couldn't believe it being a year already since that meeting. And as part of that council meeting, we discussed some updates to the existing bylaw with regards to a couple of zones within the municipality. So I'm here before you tonight to go through the zones and what we found and what our recommendations are to look at rezoning a couple of these areas. So the first is the Birchwind subdivision. So the subdivision ranges in between 5th and 3rd acre parcels. That's what I refer to as the older section of Birchwind. There's actually an actual designated RS1 towards the end of the Birchwind. This bylaw does not affect those parcels. So we've reviewed the zone, and we've kind of tried to best fit a new zone within there based on the existing parcels which have been created. So through this review, we kind of found that it would be appropriate to have a 5th acre parcel. I'll go through the bylaw in its totality in a second. So that's Birchwind. Civic institutional section. As part of the permit process for the civic centre here, it became apparent that some of the zone wasn't really current anymore, shall we say, in regards to setbacks, the parking requirements, and the references to residentials. We've looked to clean up that zone too. And then there's a parcel called P2 Park, and we want to rezone that to P1 Civic Institutional. The reason being that it allows a greater flexibility in between the hub and the Spirit Park, and it'll allow us to remove the existing road right away in the future of Mar Murray, and we'll actually relocate that to the north, so there's a better connectivity between the hub building and the actual park. So there'll be a plaza that leads straight directly in, and this change of zone will allow us to make those accommodations. And then lastly, this has a bit of a history to it, the equestrian commercial zone C3, rezoning that to RS1. Proponent came forward a while back now and kind of produced some previous records showing that this actually had been rezoned to RS1 previously in an old zoning bylaw, and for some reason back when we reviewed it and changed it again, it actually converted back to C3, so the proponent has asked to look to put this back to RS1. The property's already built on this zone, wouldn't really conform to the C3 zone either, so we're looking to actually transfer it back to the RS1 so it's appropriately zoned. And therefore, the reason for doing such things is the legal non-conforming, but if something happened to the house and it burnt down, they had to come back through a building permit process. The same would go for the Birchwine process as well, that we struggled to be able to provide the proponent the same property again because they wouldn't be compliant with the zoning, hence why we're looking to update these zoning pieces. So I'll just, I'll skip to the actual bylaws themselves just to give you a quick overview of the real changes. So the RS2 zone, we're changing the minimum parcel size from the 1 acre down to a 1/5 acre. It's 750, which isn't quite, it's a little bit smaller than a 1/5 acre. It's to give a little bit of leeway because there's always a little bit of concern because we haven't gone through every single parcel to make sure that it is not, how can I best do it? Sometimes they're not exactly 1/5, I found, so it gives us that little bit of leeway, so that hence why it's just below a 1/5 acre. I did check that there's no way that an existing parcel could be subdivided based on this, so it's strictly that whatever parcel is there right now couldn't be subdivided again and create two parcels. Maximum building height stays the same as it always has been through the RS1, didn't change that. We increased the maximum floor area ratio of the parcel. The reason being for this is that because obviously they're a smaller parcel of land and the houses which are built currently, I can't say for definite, but it's highly unlikely that many of the houses could be rebuilt based on the existing zone, and hence why we've increased that to the 0.35 to allow if a house burnt down, they could actually be rebuilt on the same footing. Minimum building setbacks, there are a few relaxations compared to the RS1. Again, it's to accommodate existing properties. Majority of the properties actually have a front parcel line setback of just over 6 meters, so I've reduced it to 6, just to give a little bit of leeway again. In RS1, it's 7.6 typically. The rear yard setback is 7.6 for the principal, similar to most other zones. Exterior side yard setback, we've put that to 3 meters. That is a relaxation compared to an RS1. Then the interior parcel sideline setback is decreased quite significantly from an RS1, and that's down to 1.5. So to put that into, if you had two buildings, there'd actually be 3 meters between those two buildings, principal buildings. And there's a number of parcels right now, to be perfectly honest, still wouldn't meet this zoning. However, if they did burn down, we'd ask them to be set back away from the property, and there are a few which are more or less built right along the property line, so they would actually have to be amended to conform to the zone if anything ever happened to that property. And then accessory buildings, we've decreased some of the requirements for the accessory buildings, especially the rear yard setback, to allow, again, there are some ancillary buildings built within the zone, again, so if it burnt down, you could actually rebuild them and be conforming again. Street parking, nothing has changed, 2 parcels per family dwelling, the same for any secondary suites. We've increased the parcel coverage as well to 35%. Again, that was to allow for existing properties to be conforming, and also within the area there are a couple of ranches and what have you, so it allows for that level building if proponents so wanted. Other regulations, just the usual subdivision control bylaw, and then finally the last piece of the zoning plan would be updated based on this change of parcel. And then attachment B identifies the parcels that we're looking to change. And then the next bylaw amendment would be in regards to the P1 zone. The P1 zone is a civic institutional area. This is where we removed any reference to residential, because we don't want residential on our civic zone. We've shown off minimal parcel size. The parcels already conform. Building heights, there's a slight increase in building height, just in case anything wanted to happen with the civic zone in the future. Minimum building setbacks, these have been relaxed. Now, the real one to really take notice of is the interior side parcel setbacks, and that has gone down to 0. The reason being is for this interaction in between the hub building and what would then become the plaza kind of area outside of it, so it allows that building to come right up to the property line. Because if you didn't realize, there's actually 2 parcels of land, one where the old hall used to build, and Spirit Park is another parcel of land. So it allows that close interaction between them. And then we also reduced the requirements from the civic use side of things. We've reduced or increased, depending on how you want to review it, to 90 meters per square meter will require 1 building space. Putting into context, the previous bylaw would have required 130 stalls, I think, which would have been all of Spirit Park. So I don't think it was a very good use of civic land to build it that way. So there's that, and that is the general overview.
Good. Okay, and you had a resolution. We should maybe get the resolution on, then I'll open up to council for questions, if that's all right.
Yep, I shall read the resolution. Can you go back 1 second? So the recommendation, the council grant first and second reading to the Anmore zoning amendment bylaw 661-2022, and that council direct staff to set a date for the public hearing, and that council grant first and second reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw 662-2022, and that council direct staff to set a date for the public hearing.
Good. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. I'll open up for questions. Councillor Weberink.
Yeah, just a couple things on the Birchwine subdivision. I'm glad that's finally getting resolved because that subdivision's been there since the 50s. And
Yeah.
it's not compliant with the current anything. So it's good to correct all that. Just a question, what's the difference between a side yard setback and, like, there's interior side parcel line setback and exterior?
Yeah, I can
What's
tell you the
the
definition. So in between parcel to parcel, so property to property, the line that is in between your houses, that's an interior. The exterior is when it's, if you have two roads facing it. So if you have, say, what would it be? I forget the cul-de-sac,
Well, like
sorry.
a corner lot?
Yeah, a corner lot, so one would have an exterior and one would have a front.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Then I remember a while ago you changed the setbacks for, like, if you had a garage or something, because a lot of people have garages there, and I know even some of them are not going to be compliant.
Yeah.
They're built right up to the property line, but was it 3.1 meter?
So it's 1.5, they would have to place the building back from the interior side.
1.5 meters?
Yeah,
Okay. And, yeah, and as far as lot sizes, I think there are some smaller than 1/5 acre lots,
Yeah.
slightly.
slightly, that's why I've
Okay.
gone just below.
All right, that's, okay, no, that's all I have.
Good.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay. You know, I think that this really became evident when the fire, we had that fire in Birchwine, I guess it was about 6 years ago, and the people weren't able initially to rebuild with what was there. And that's really what brought this up, that our zoning had actually gone advanced of what was actually there. So I really, you know, this has been something that this council has really pushed on to make sure that people are secure, that in the event of a tragedy, they're able to rebuild, and it still conforms with the neighborhood and that. So I think this is great work, and I'm glad to see that this is moving forward. So I just wanted to say thank you. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. We'll now move on to 9B, Anmore Green Estates Local Area Service Bylaw. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So this was before council at the last meeting and is the bylaw to facilitate the collection for the loan for Anmore Green Estates sewer connection. So the recommendation this evening is that council adopt Anmore Green Estates Local Area Service Bylaw 673-2022.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? I will just say that I just got updated, I guess, yesterday, and it looks like work is going to commence on this project in beginning of July, Mr. Boyd, or?
Yeah, I attended the pre-construction meeting on Monday. The contractor is scheduled to start July 1st, and they intend to take about a month to complete the work, and then it'll be completed.
Good, so by the time the kids are going back to school in the beginning of September, we should have a functioning sewer connection. Good, thank you very much. I know this has been a lot of work. So, see no other comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, carried unanimously. Okay, Anmore Tax Bylaw Amendment Bylaw. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. Again, this was before council at the last meeting for first three readings, and Ms. Martin is available for any questions, but the recommendation would be that council adopt Anmore Tax Rates Bylaw Amendment Bylaw 660-2022.
Good, someone to move that? Moved, seconded. This is just final reading. Any questions, concerns? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, carried unanimously. And that's the 2.65% tax increase. Yep. Okay, we're now on to new business, 11A, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Ms. Halliwell.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So this is coming before council in the lead up to sort of our summer break. So if council may recall, last year the federal government named the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation as September 30th each year. And subsequent to that proclamation by the federal government, provincial governments have been consulting with First Nations in order to determine the best way that they collaboratively feel would be appropriate to mark that date. So last year, local governments across British Columbia closed their municipal offices in recognition of the day on September 30th. And it was done sort of just for the 1 year because this consultation was still happening with First Nations. And we are in that same position again for the 2022 year. So we would be looking to recommend that in order to mark the occasion that Anmore Village Hall be closed for the day. And if there's some questions, maybe I can read the recommendation.
Sure, yes, please.
Sure. So the recommendation is that whereas the Village of Anmore again wishes to commemorate the history and legacy of residential schools and honor Indigenous communities, families, and survivors by observing a day for truth and reconciliation, be it resolved that September 30th, 2022 is recognized as Truth and Reconciliation Day and that it shall be treated by the Village of Anmore as if it were a statutory holiday. And be it further resolved that council will determine how best to mark Truth and Reconciliation Day in subsequent years.
Good, could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. I'll open up for any discussion. Comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Halliwell.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to 11B, council meeting calendar amendments, July, September, October 2022. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So this resolution is before council this evening in order to consider updating the council calendar. Typically, council does not meet in the month of August, but this calendar update would see one meeting each for the months of July, September, and October. And we've done that to facilitate some scheduling issues and facility issues related to using this facility for the election as well. So the recommendation this evening would be that council direct staff to amend the regular council meeting calendar to reflect the following meeting dates for July, September, and October 2022, July 5th, September 20th, and October 18th.
Good. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any comments? Councilor Weber.
Is that going to be enough time to get through everything we have to get through? So just longer meetings?
Yes, through the chair, it will be in terms of what we have sort of planned to come forward, and certainly this would still afford the opportunity for special meetings if an urgent matter were to arise.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We're now on to 11C, Public Works Staffing. Ms. Halliwell.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen, and thank you to council for allowing this late agenda item. So this particular item is in relation to the potential for an additional public works position. An opportunity has sort of come up where there is the potential for a Saskmat Volunteer Fire Department member who has a range of qualifications to be employed by the village, but also then provide daytime call-out service for the Saskmat Volunteer Fire Department. So this would mean that the position would respond during the day to call-outs where we don't have at this point in time a lot of coverage for, especially during the week. So we're looking at the potential of also sort of amalgamating some of the other positions that we have funded on a more casual basis. And this includes our summer bylaw enforcement officer who currently works throughout the summer on weekends. We have a lack of bylaw enforcement ability throughout the rest of the year. So this position would be able to fulfill that role, and we would utilize the funding already in place for the summer bylaw officer. We're also looking at the potential for this position not only to support public works and our events, but also to start working with our building department, as he does have some qualifications in that area. So that would be sort of supporting our succession planning internally. And also with this position, we would be recommending that they had a regular shift that worked on the weekends. So not only they provide that bylaw coverage, but also in the winter time, it would significantly reduce our overtime budget, because that position would also be assisting with the winter maintenance and snow clearing on the weekends as well, when we typically pay double time for that right now. So I'll maybe just put forward a recommendation, and council is
please.
welcome to ask any questions and make comment. So the recommendation is that council authorize up to $60,000 in additional funding for a full-time public works position, and that the funding be allocated from the surplus reserve.
Good. Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded, open up for discussion. Councilor Weber.
So 60K, how much money would this save? I mean, obviously, I know last year we had a lot of overtime for snow plowing, so this would improve that. I'll speak to it in my councilor's report, but the advantage of having someone available on the volunteer fire department during the day, I know it's an issue. It's the hardest time they have finding coverage. So I like that idea, but obviously this is going to save some money, so it's not really a 60,000K hit.
So
Would I
the
be truthful and say that?
60,000 would be sort of up to at this point. So we do know that we currently budget approximately $10,000 for the summer bylaw enforcement.
Okay.
So overall, the position budget would sort of be up to the $70,000 mark. It's difficult to quantify with the winter maintenance how much savings there would be.
Right.
Last year, we did have a high overtime, and it cost us about $20,000 to $30,000 for the season. So again, it really depends on what kind of winter we've had, but there would absolutely be savings there as well.
Okay. And is this person water qualified? Are they going to get water qualified, like water operator?
So we don't, through the chair, we don't, he's not currently qualified as a water operator. However, our intention is to ensure that all of our public works have the basic level 1 operator. That is fairly straightforward to obtain. Then we go to level 2, and that's actually the system that we have currently is categorized as a level 2. Okay. So it takes a significant amount of time in order to earn enough hands-on experience to actually be qualified as a level 2. But we certainly are working with all of our public works staff, including this position, to at least obtain their level 1 to start.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Good. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Trowbridge.
Yeah, not so much questions, just comment. I mean, we've seen fluctuations like 10,000 up to 30,000, pretty tough to manage and pretty tough to budget. So, you know, I like the concept of having a known number, and more than just a known number, weekend coverage that we desperately need, and the during the weekday time call out, pretty critical piece. So I'm in favor of the concept.
Good. Thank you. I'll just add truly the coverage of having a fully trained Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department member on from 9 to 5 during the day is essential. We have challenges, and I think we're seeing that in Belcarra as their sort of aging population ages, and as we have too, and I think we'll be hearing a little bit more about that, the challenges that we can face during the day in the coming minutes. And so, but I will just tell you that I think this is an incredible opportunity, as well as we also have to realize that, you know, last year where we experienced not a huge snow event, but ongoing icing, and that we are going to be switching over to a brine system, which will be a little bit more preventive, but it still isn't going to eliminate those heavy snowfalls. But we also, we were at the mercy of a private third-party individual to be able to come and basically plow our roads over the Christmas holidays last year because of people being injured and that. So we need more coverage. And I tell you, it's one of the things I hear from everybody is everybody praises the work that the Public Works Department does in regards to keeping our roads clear so that people can get in and out of this village. And I know that we take it for granted, but we are so fortunate to have, you know, all the tools and the resources to be able to do that. And we are the talk of the Tri-Cities because people will say, I'm not worried about once I'm in Anmore, I'm just worried about getting there. So honestly, I think it's well worth the money, and I think it's you know, long-term and good financial planning. So that's all I have to say. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll just move on to the mayor's report. June 2nd, I attended the lunch with leaders. Chief Ed Hall from the Coquitlam Band was there, listened to the story and the evolution of the Coquitlam Band, which was just fascinating, and how they're interacting with the local communities. I also wanted to just take a few minutes and talk to everybody about the Sassamat Volunteer Fire Department. I'm fortunate enough to be one of the trustees, as Councillor Weverink and Councillor Trowbridge, the three of us are. We had hoped that on the tax notices that were going to be coming out, we wanted to do a separate line item for fire protection, which a lot of municipalities do. And I want to go through a couple of examples that I have, and I wanted to express to you how, as trustees, we're taking the financial planning that we did in this village of over 12 years ago by putting money and making sure that we had it in our capital to be able to do, making sure all our roads are in good shape, all our drainage and water system and that, and we're now taking it over into the fire department. And one of the things that we have to do in the coming years to be compliant through WCB is we need to build 2 new fire halls. The fire halls that are in existence are not earthquake sound, and they also don't have a separate area, and Trevor, I hope I'm getting this right, where the turnout gear stays separated from the trucks to be decontaminated properly, and showers as well. So about a month and a half ago, I guess myself and Councillor Weverink and Councillor Trowbridge, we spent a day over looking at Bowen Island, and there are some examples that they have of fire halls, and it was really fascinating. But I just wanted to kind of bring a couple things to light. So last year, at the prompting of the trustees, we started to put money away for these fire halls. That had never been done before. We put money away for capital because we have to, there's a certain thing, we have to replace trucks to make sure that they're insurable. And I hope I'm getting this all right, because every 15 years, we have to have a truck within 15 years of age. It doesn't matter how much mileage it has on it, but for the insurable factor. So each municipality. We can't get away with 2 fire halls because of the distance. There has to be a fire hall in Belcarra. There has to be a fire hall in Anmore. So we cannot amalgamate those into one anywhere within. The distance is too great. So we started putting away. And just so people understand how the funding for the fire hall works, it gets vetted through or flowed through Metro Vancouver. So we pay them an administrative charge, they handle it, and they support Jay as much as they can in regards. We go through procurement for buying fire trucks and equipment through them, but they charge us an administrative charge. It's about $30,000 a year to help us administrate it, but Jay does a lot of work on his own as a volunteer. So how the funding works is there's really 2 formulas to the funding. There's one which is the operations, and that's based on households. So in Anmore, we pay about 75 to 80% of the operational costs. Belcarra pays about 20 to 25%. That's operational because the majority of the calls, it's based on population. So that's how that formula is. The other formula is on capital. And capital is split 50-50 between the 2 municipalities. And the example is whether, you know, we both need the same trucks, we both need the same equipment to store the trucks, so it's a 50-50 split. So on your tax notice, this last year, it should have been divvied up, and it wasn't. So I'm going to kind of go through it in a very general terms. But on an average Anmore house, our average assessed value of an Anmore house is, what did I have here? 2.3 million? Is that it? About 2.3 million. Okay.
But that's correct.
So the average Anmore house, believe it or not, is $2.3 million. We pay, from Anmore's portion, we pay $273 towards the operations of the fire department. We then pay about $51, and this is a year, towards the capital, tanks, hoses and that. And then we started to put away this transfer to reserves for the capital of $166. So a total on a $2.3 million house, it's about $490 is being paid towards the Sasamet Volunteer Fire Department for fire coverage for our community. And of course, as I said, the capital is split equally with Belcarra. Ours is less per house because they have less houses, but they still put in the same amount. So we're approximately putting in about $300,000 per year. So at the end of 2022, according to the trustees, we'll have about $450,000 saved towards 2 new fire halls, which again is not nearly enough, as we've seen. We're probably going to need somewhere in the neighborhood of probably between $6 and $10 million to be able to facilitate 2 fire halls. So that's going to have to increase. But I wanted to bring this to people's attention is that I have a cabin at Hemlock Ski Resort, and the line item for volunteer fire department there a year that I pay is $887. I can tell you as well, in Port Coquitlam, a $1.2 million house, which is their average price of a house, it's about $1,100 they pay specifically for fire protection. So why I'm saying this is that we are so fortunate to have the volunteer fire department in Anmore, but it is going to require some more funding in the future. We need to be able to make sure that we are, the firemen are well served, are well protected. They have the latest equipment to be able to protect us, and they're not putting their own lives at risk when they're working there. So I just wanted to put that out there, and hopefully next year we will get those line items so people can actually, when they see their taxes, they can actually see where their money is going. And we as trustees have always said, if people knew really what we pay for the fire department, they'd be going, what an incredible bargain that is, and how much they deserve in regards to things. Just to put things in perspective, on your tax requisition for the average house, Metro Vancouver's total tax requisition is about $608. So that includes other aspects of Metro Vancouver that they're planning and that. So it's about, of the Metro Vancouver fee that you see on there, it's about, did you say 90% of it goes to the fire department?
Yes, it's around 85%.
85%. So I just want to make sure a lot of people didn't realize that we pay for fire, we pay for policing as well, which is on our tax notice as well. So I just wanted to kind of go through that exercise with everyone just so they hopefully understand it all. And we need to save more. That's the big thing. We need to start putting more money away because there is going to be these 2 halls that have been noticed that we have to get onto them as soon as possible. And then the last thing I just wanted to say in my mayor's report, and it was really an incredibly momentous day, and the fact that we had our official groundbreaking ceremony for the new Village Hub. The day couldn't have turned out better. I just wanted to thank staff for putting it all together. It was amazing. There was about 100 people there. There was, it really was, it was something that we have worked such a long time for it to start and to see it coming and breaking ground. There was a lot of longtime residents and even the family that donated us the house, which was a really special moment. And I really wanted to thank everybody for coming out. And again, a real momentous day for this village, and looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. So thank you. I'll open up for Councillor's report. Councillor Laidler.
I have to leave at 8 o'clock for a business appointment. Please, anybody that has a question in the public question period, don't take offense at me not being here. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other? Oh, please, Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A couple of things. I want to echo my thanks to staff for today's groundbreaking. It was really a special day. We had a great turnout. The sun was out. It was lovely, and we appreciate the work that went into that, as well as the move. I was not here when you were doing the move, so thank you to everyone for getting all of the shifting done. I haven't been too busy because I've been out of town, but I was part of the ribbon cutting ceremony on May 29th for Hike for Hospice. And also on Friday night, I attended the Port Moody Police Awards dinner at Vancouver Golf Club. It was the first time they'd done a formal awards. It was lovely. They did some civilian commendations as well as many retirement awards and other very interesting commendations for different investigations, and it was very, very well done. It was a nice opportunity to see people and also celebrate Port Moody Police. And happy to have Councillor Weberink here with us. I'll let you speak more to that, I would think, and that is all.
Thank you. Councillor Weberink.
So I'd also like to say it was a momentous day for opening, the groundbreaking for the hub. I've been up here for 25 years, and I have great memories of, when we were 900 people, of having events in the old Montmurray house. But it was a house, and it was falling down. We're 2,500 people now, growing. So to realize that this hub is actually going to be built, and it's going to be a true community hub, not just village offices, not just council chambers. It's going to be for everybody. I'm a very community-minded guy. I love the community events, and I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen there. I think it's very exciting. And to speak a little bit on a more personal note about the Sasamat Volunteer Fire Department, 3 weeks ago, they saved my life. It was the day after this council meeting. I was working at home because I have had some surgery coming up, and I was just sort of taking it easy. I had some chest pains, just like typical guy, they say, well, you tend to ignore it. Well, I'd been through first aid with the Sasamat Volunteer Fire Department several times, and I was taught to not ignore those signs. So I phoned 911, waited for an ambulance, and sitting there with good old Bill Cook, who was my first aid trainer, and congratulating me for phoning him and doing the right thing. And Jay Sharp, luckily, was around, and another fellow, Nigel, were working on me. And they said I lost consciousness, my heart stopped, I was on the floor. Within a minute, they had me back. So clinically dead for a minute, and those guys just did everything right. So what we pay for them and what we get out of that department is unbelievable value. I can't thank them enough. And I can't thank the people in this community that reached out to me and sent me cards and helped my wife. She's having some challenges, so they really took care of her. It's just, I love this community. It's unbelievable. It's an experience I never thought I would go through, and I still got some issues, but I'm going to get through it, and I'm still going to keep giving to this community because it's worth it. So thanks to everyone that supported me and my family. And that's it.
Okay. Our Chief Administrative Officer's report.
I'm going to keep it short after that. Thank you, yes. Just a couple of notes. We're still working through a few kinks with our Village Hall relocation and a few little minor things to get done, but we're open and operational, and hopefully everybody can find us down in behind the Anmore campground at the Public Works Yard, which will be our home for the next year or so. Property tax notices have gone out. You should have all received them by now. If you haven't, please follow up with the Village Hall. Property taxes are due on July 4th, and if you're eligible for a homeowner grant, you can claim that through the province. That was a change that happened a year or two ago, where you have to claim your homeowner grant through the province as opposed to the village. I just wanted to note that it was a bit of a perfect storm in our community about growing season for grass, plus having our public works really lending a big hand in our trailer relocation. So they've been spending the last week and a bit trying to get on top of all the grass that's been growing furiously, and we'll continue to do that until everything's under control. And I am going to turn it over to Mr. Boyd, because I'm sure there's a couple of questions about road paving and a bus shelter, which I believe you have responses for.
Bus shelter, not so much. We're just on the waiting list right now to get manufactured and installed. But as to the capital works, Hemlock, as of hopefully, fingers crossed tomorrow, we'll get the paperwork resolved for Hemlock. So we'll have Hemlock going forward for paving. Unfortunately, just put it in context, it's twice the amount as it was expected to be, more or less due to oil increases. Everything we do on roads is based around oil, so it has significantly hampered some of the work we wanted to do. However, we will get it paved and back up to drivable standards. We'll also be taking care of some of Sunnyside Road as well as our yearly maintenance on Sunnyside. What else is there on that side of things? And you'll also see us doing some things you won't already understand, but we're relocating some water meters from inside of people's properties to the actual property line as per how we would do it in 21st century. So that's the main part of the capital works going forward here. Yeah. And just an update to the community. No, you already touched upon it. AG, sorry. I was going to say that AG will finally have the sewer hookup by the end of the school vacation here. So I'll be that.
Good, thank you both. Lots of information. We have some, moving on, we have some general correspondence. Metro Vancouver Board and Brief meeting held on May 27th. I'll now open up to public question period. Public is permitted to ask questions of council regarding any item. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. Okay.
Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road. And before my questions, Paul, Bruce and I are so glad that you're here.
Thank you for the nice card, Nancy.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
much appreciated.
You are much appreciated.
Thanks.
So I actually have two questions. Some people here may have seen this article in the Vancouver Sun about the tree canopy for Metro Vancouver. And Metro Vancouver's tree canopy target is actually 40% by 2050. And so my question related to us is, so this is my first question, do staff or council know Anmore's percent tree canopy at this time? I unsuccessfully tried to find that. And has this ratio been falling with increased development, especially where forested land has been clear cut?
We do not have any of that information here, sorry.
We don't know what our tree canopy is.
I don't believe we've ever taken a survey of the tree canopy.
It's only based on the radio report this morning by an SFU professor that did some work on the canopy for Vancouver. And all I can say is that an individual, and it was people dying from the heat stroke last year, and most people died in individual houses as opposed to having townhouses or apartments because with the individual house, apparently you have more of the tree canopy removed. Afraid that's all I listened.
Yeah. And your next, sorry, Nancy, your next
Okay.
question?
Well, but should we be finding out what our tree canopy is and be keeping track of that? This newspaper article gave many different municipalities and their percent tree coverage. But we would have to do our own study. Is this what you're saying, Chris?
Yep. I don't think we can ask Port Moody to do it for us, so we'd have to do it ourselves.
Okay. Okay, second question. I know that the use of glyphosate, also known as Roundup, is not banned in Anmore, despite its link to cancer in humans and animals, including, actually, our dog and cat family members. So my question is glyphosate used by our village workers, and are they informed of the health risk under, I assume we have OSH guidelines for our staff, so would they be informed of the health risk if glyphosate is used? And like Vancouver and more than 40 other Canadian municipalities, should this product be banned locally except for extraordinary circumstances like the eradication of invasive species?
Ms. Halliwell, do you know if,
Without having our Public Works Department here to offer a formal response, I'll take a leap and understand that we do have the WMIS forms for anything that we purchase that would have a negative impact. So I would be under the understanding that, yes, they would be aware of the impacts.
And are they using that product?
I can't say with any certainty, but I can follow up.
yeah, let's follow up, yeah, perfect.
I would appreciate council's thoughts on whether this product should be banned, as is the case.
I think we need to see what Public Works is using it at this point in time, if they are even using it. It may be sort of irrelevant.
No, it would not be irrelevant because a ban would apply to households, not just the municipality, like the ban in Vancouver.
Again, I would rather prefer to wait to hear from the Public Works what their position is on it.
I think typically most of these things are regulated through the province and the federal government. And I would also say there are applications for it, like you said, for a removal of invasive species,
Yes.
such as Japanese knotweed. I know it's
Exactly.
used on. And so there are applications for it. So I think, again, it just fall back to the regulations of the provincial and federal government. And, you know, I don't recommend people use Roundup, but, you know, there are applications for it, I suppose. That's the way I put it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in public question period?
Welcome back, Paul. Jurgedruchten 1815A East Road. Actually, I want to touch on something that Councillor Weaverink later had pointed out. This is a series of questions, actually, but it touches on Councillor Leder's point. It's really a series of questions I have, and it has to do with the climate catastrophes and asking if people really remember them. Do you remember the heat dome last June with record temperatures of 40 degrees plus? Do you remember that 619 people died? Yes, mostly in their own home, but they were actually low-income people, and that's the reason why. Do you remember that fires came next and that Lytton was burned to the ground? Do you remember that the floods that followed with massive infrastructure damage, especially in Abbotsford and the city of Merritt? Do you remember the landslides? Did you keep your heat on this spring, at least until yesterday? May I ask, may I remind you that this is June? And really the central question I'm asking is, does council see a link between these unprecedented events? Is this just climate changing, or are we experiencing a climate crisis? Is this not a problem for all of humanity? Is this not a problem for ourselves as well in Anmore? Is there something we can do to better mitigate the climate crisis? And if so, what are they? What should we learn to anticipate future catastrophes? And what is council doing to teach Anmore residents to help in dealing with the climate crisis? Basically, I'm asking, is council willing to declare a climate crisis, as have other municipalities in BC? Or are we willing to wait until a catastrophe hits us in order to declare one? Thank you.
Anybody want to? It's a pretty big scope. Okay.
I'll take this one. I'm the Environment Committee Chair. I mean, I think there is a climate crisis. I think it is the biggest threat to humanity before us right now. I honestly believe that. And I think some of these events are proof of that. As a municipality, we could do a lot of things. We could completely change the way we live in this community. I don't know if this community is in favor of that. We all probably live in houses bigger than we need. We all drive cars. We're not transit oriented here. As a community, I've said this before when the question was asked, we're not doing a lot as a community. And a community is all 2,500 of us. And the climate emergency doesn't respect borders. I mean, we could do our part. We can do our part as a community. We can do our part as a province. We can do our part as a country. Canada's 40 million people. We will not be able to solve the climate crisis without world participation. All we can hope to do is set a good example. I'm willing to look at ways to set a good example and maybe live differently. I'm ready to live differently. I don't need the house I have. I could move to a smaller place. I can't drive for 6 months, so I guess there's going to be a positive impact there. I'll be using transit. So I'm going to learn the hard way to live a little bit more sustainably as an individual. And I would encourage everybody to look at how you can make an individual impact and how you can impact your community to live better. But you know, we're a small pea in the pod. It's a big pod, and there's got to be a lot of change in this world. And I sometimes question if it is too late, but doesn't mean we should do nothing. So I'm always willing to have the conversation of how we as a community could contribute to a more sustainable future. There's a lot of things we could do right away. And there's an election coming up, make it an issue.
You know, one of the things that we've talked about in regards to the wildfire, which seems to be the big challenge and the concern that most residents have here. And, you know, one of the things that we've talked about is possibly clearing a swath all around our village of about a half a kilometer wide. And then you think about the pushback that would come from people for that. You know, but theoretically, from a fire, you know, from our fire chief's perspective, he said that's what we should be doing. So there's things that we should be doing and things that we can do. And I think that, you know, FireSmart has gone out regarding a lot of the houses and done evaluations of all the debris that is around people's houses and making sure that people are cleaning that up and that. So, you know, there is various things that we can do, but, you know, we're becoming more efficient. Our houses are becoming, we took this step. We upped our thing to step code 3, making sure that all the new houses that were being built here were being environmentally as sensitive as possible, and making sure that they can retain and expel heat in a more advanced way. So, you know, there are steps that we're doing, but some of them are going to be big things in regards to, like I said, removing trees all around our communities and that, which is not going to be too appeasing to a lot of people. So anyway, any other public question? Oh,
So just because you mentioned, Mayor, about the FireSmart program, so
Yeah.
just maybe a bit of a plug and a reminder that program has been extended, so you can still reach out and have someone come in and do an assessment on your home. And then certain people, I think it's seniors, are eligible to actually have some of the work that's required and identified through those assessments paid for and completed as well.
good. Okay, see nobody else, I'll move to adjourn. Someone to move second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. And I think there was a hockey game on. I don't know. Don't tell me what the score is. I got it.